The movie begins with a young journalist named Tintin having his portrait taken in Brussels. His dog Snowy sees a strange man named Silk walking by and watches as he steals from several people. Tintin gets up and searches for Snowy. He finds him beside some mirrors and sees the reflection of a ship model. He walks to the vendor, and the vendor tells Tintin that the ship, named the Unicorn, is one of a kind. Tintin buys the ship and is immediately met by a man named Barnaby. Barnaby tries buying the ship, but Tintin declines. He instructs him to get rid of the boat and get away while he still can because unknown people don't play nice. Barnaby hurriedly walks away, and Sakari bumps into Tintin and offers to pay for it. Tintin declines, and the vendor gets frustrated because he missed a good opportunity. Sakari informs Tintin that he purchased the Haddock estate, popularly known as the Marlinspike Hall, and the ship was a part of it. Tintin stands by his decision not to sell the ship and walks away. Tintin enters his apartment with the boat and places it on a cupboard. He searches for his magnifying glass around his house and passes several news articles about cases he has solved. Snowy gives him the magnifying glass but sees a cat and pursues it around the house. They hit the ship, and it falls to the ground and breaks. A silver tube falls from it as Tintin picks it up and says they will find out what happened on the ship. He leaves his house and rushes to the library, where he reads about Sir Francis and the Unicorn. He sees that no one has been able to find out what happened on the ship and notices that someone is watching him. Tintin returns home but realizes that the ship is missing. He goes to the Haddock estate and realizes that the fish on the symbol is a haddock fish. A dog emerges and chases Tintin around the compound. He gets trapped in a corner, but Snowy emerges and tames the dog. Tintin makes his way into the house, and a man follows him as he looks around. He finds the ship but gets knocked out by a man named Nestor. Tintin wakes up and tells Sakari he came to retrieve his property. He holds the ship and realizes it isn't his because the one in his house is broken. He wonders why Sir Francis made two ships, and Sakari asks him to leave. Tintin returns to his house and finds that his apartment has been vandalized. Snowy barks beside the cupboard, and Tintin finds the metal tube. He sees a small scroll that talks about 3 brothers and 3 unicorns. He hears a knock on the door and places the scroll in his wallet. He sees his landlady talking to Barnaby and asks her to leave. Barnaby asks Tintin to open the door and says that someone is after him for the information he has. Tintin wonders who he is talking about, and unknown men drive by and shoot Barnaby several times. The door opens, and Barnaby falls to the ground. He uses his blood to mark the newspaper beside him and loses consciousness. The following day, 2 dim-witted police officers named Thompson and Thompson talk to Tintin. He realizes that Barnaby was referring to Caraboudjan, and the officers get distracted by some ads in the newspaper. They walk out of the house, and Silk bumps into them as he tries to steal their wallets. Unknown to him, the officer's wallet has a rope attached, so they get dragged as he tries to escape. They follow him, but he evades them and steals Tintin's wallet. Tintin walks to his house and sees some men with a package. They inform him that he is the package and knock him out as they put him in a crate. Snowy sees the men drive away and pursue them. He makes his way to the docks and gets on a ship with the crate. A man named Alan and his goons search Tintin's clothes as he wakes up. Sakari steps in and asks for the scroll. Tintin tells him that he isn't with the scroll, and he leaves the room. Snowy enters the room and reunites with Tintin. He bites the ropes off Tintin's hands, and Tintin locks the door. Alan and his goons return and find the door locked. Tintin ties rope to a piece of wood and throws it into a different room. He escapes the room and distracts the goons using wine bottles. Tintin meets a drunken captain, Archibald Haddock, and a fight ensues. He explains to Haddock that he isn't trying to kill him, and Haddock says Sakari has taken over his ship. Tintin leaves the room and fights a guard. Haddock angrily steps out of the room and helps Tintin defeat the man. Tintin realizes that the captain is a descendant of Francis Haddock and follows him to a lifeboat. Sakari instructs the men on the ship to find Haddock and Tintin. Haddock and Tintin arrive at a locked door, and Tintin carefully retrieves the key from some sleeping men. Haddock opens the locked door and reveals that it is a liquor storage room. They go to the escape boat but hide as a man passes by. Tintin realizes there is a radio room on the ship and decides to go to it. He enters the room and sees a book revealing that the ship is headed for Baghar. A guard sees as Haddock unties the boat but falls overboard before he can alert the others. Tintin makes his way to the lifeboat while escaping the men. Tintin eventually gets on the boat with Haddock and Snowy. Alan sees a boat in the water and crushes it with the ship. Sakari yells at the men for killing Haddock, but they inform him that 2 boats are missing, and they destroy the decoy. The following day, Tintin tells Haddock that Sakari is headed for Baghar because Omar Ben Salad is a ship collector and has the 3rd unicorn. He says that Sakari needs him because he is the only one who can solve the puzzle, but Haddock says he can't remember his family's secrets. He decides to help Tintin get to Baghar but accidentally knocks them out. Thompson and Thompson meet Silk and say they found his wallet in the pickpocket's pocket. They enter his house and see his wallet collection. He tells them he can't resist stealing wallets, and they find Tintin's wallet. On the lifeboat, Haddock gets cold and finds a bottle of whiskey. He uses it to start a fire on the boat, and Tintin wakes up. Tintin sees the fire and makes Haddock realize what he has done. He tries putting out the fire but pours the whiskey into it, causing it to explode and flip upside down. They sit on the boat as Haddock feels bad for what he did. They see a plane approaching, and it shoots at them as it gets closer. Tintin pulls out his gun and tells Haddock he has only a bullet left. He shoots the plane and causes it to land on the water. Tintin and the others get on the plane, and Tintin flies it. They enter a storm, and Tintin refuses to turn back. Lightning strikes the plane, and as they lose control, Haddock picks a bottle of medicinal spirit and drinks it. The plane runs out of fuel, and Tintin instructs Haddock to use the spirit to fuel the plane for a short distance. Haddock steps out of the plane and uses his burp to fuel the plane. Tintin tries to navigate the plane through a desert, and Haddock falls off. The plane crashes, and Tintin gets knocked out as he slowly moves into the rotating propeller. Haddock rushes and saves him but gets tangled by the propeller. Haddock and Tintin walk through the desert, and Haddock runs out of whiskey. He begins hallucinating and remembers what Francis, his grandfather, told him. Francis got in a fight with the Red Rackham and his ship. The ships get stuck together as they move through the water. Francis sees Red Rackham entering his ship, but Haddock realizes he is sober and passes out. Some men find them that night and take them to their base. Tintin talks to Lieutenant Delcourt and goes to Haddock's room. He asks Haddock to remember the rest of the story, and Snowy places a bottle of spirit on his tray. Haddock drinks the spirit and begins reenacting the actions that Francis performed. Haddock tells Tintin that the pirates took the unicorn, and Red Rackham forced Francis to take him to the treasure room. Francis gets tied to a pole but uses the blade on his hat's feather to release himself. He makes his way to the armory and sets a trail of gunpowder. Francis lights the trail, but Red Rackham sees him, and a fight ensues. He takes Rackham down, and Haddock realizes that Sakari is Rackham's descendant. Rackham curses Francis as he jumps out of the ship, and it explodes. The gold rains down, and Francis uses his hat to catch it. Tintin realizes that the scrolls have a clue to finding the lost treasure. Haddock swears he will find the treasure, and they make their way to Baghar. Tintin and Haddock arrive in Baghar and see Sakari's ship. They walk through the city and realize they are being followed. They take down their pursuers but realize they are Thompson and Thompson. They give Tintin his wallet, and he sees the scroll. He sees a poster of the Milanese nightingale and realizes Bianca, an opera singer, is Sakari's secret weapon for retrieving the 3rd ship. Bianca meets Omar Ben Salad and introduces Sakari as her escort. He sees the 3rd ship in a bulletproof case and walks away. Outside, Tintin gives Haddock the scroll and tells him to guard it. They sit and listen to Bianca as she sings. Haddock leaves the room because the music affects his ears. Alan and his goons knock him out and take the scroll. Tintin sees Sakari and watches as Bianca uses her singing to break the bulletproof glass. Sakari's hawk retrieves the scroll and takes it to him. Haddock meets Tintin and informs him that Sakari has his scroll. Sakari gets in a car and drives away. Tintin and Haddock get on a motorcycle and pursue Sakari. Haddock accidentally destroys a dam, and water flows into the city. They reach Sakari's car, and Tintin takes the scrolls. They move through the city as the scrolls move from person to person. Tintin eventually grabs the hawk, and as he tries retrieving the scrolls, Sakari emerges and threatens to kill Haddock and Snowy. He drops them into the water, and Tintin dives in to save them. Tintin sits and tells Haddock that he doesn't have a plan. He says they have failed, and Haddock instructs him not to call himself a failure. Tintin remembers that he sent a radio message from the ship and knows the ship's radio signal. He says they can track the harbors they are about to enter and get there first. That night, Sakari arrives in Brussels, and as he gets in a car, a crane controlled by Haddock picks it up. He moves the car to where the police are, but Sakari uses a gun to protect himself. Alan enters the crane's control room and shoots at Haddock. Haddock throws him out of the crane while Sakari makes his way into a different crane. They use the cranes to fight while Tintin and the others run to safety. Haddock tells Sakari he remembers what Francis told him, and they continue fighting. Sakari destroys Haddock's crane, and he falls out. He walks to Haddock, and a fight ensues. Haddock uses several bottles of whiskey to fight. Sakari threatens to burn the scrolls, but Tintin swings and grabs them. Haddock throws him out of the ship and drops a bottle on his head. Tintin places the scrolls together and uses sunlight to reveal secret coordinates. He tells Haddock that it's the treasure's location, and they celebrate. They make their way to the coordinates and arrive at the Haddock estate. Tintin wonders why Francis hid the treasure in his house, and they meet Nestor. Haddock asks where the cellar is, and Nestor takes them to it. He says there is a different cellar, but Nestor says he isn't aware of what he is talking about. Snowy suddenly disappears as he plays with the other dog, and as Tintin searches for him, they find the cellar Haddock talks about. They see a statue of a man holding a globe, and as Haddock looks at the globe, he realizes there's an island on it that doesn't exist. Tintin tells Haddock that Francis wanted a worthy person to inherit his treasure. Haddock touches the island, and the top of the globe comes off. They find some treasure inside, and Tintin finds new coordinates under the hat. Haddock removes the treasure, puts on the hat, and Tintin tells him about the new coordinates. He asks Haddock about his thirst for adventure and Snowy barks in excitement. The end. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.